Right about now, a flower is blooming in old farmyards and city gardens with clouds of purple perfume, signaling to us that a cutesy little honeycomb mushroom is popping up beneath dead leaves in the woods. For generations, Minnesotans have watched lilacs bloom and know that the Morels are up. Today, we're exploring the history of lilacs, the mysterious life of Morels, and why these two spring icons rise together every May.
You ever walk into a garden center for one bag of compost and somehow leave needing a second mortgage and a bigger vehicle? Because that's gardening logic. 1 minute, you're being responsible. The next, you're emotionally attached to a 6-foot Japanese maple and arguing with yourself about where it could possibly fit. Today, we're talking about how to actually shop smarter at garden centers, how to spot healthy plants, avoid expensive mistakes, and why the prettiest plant in the nursery is sometimes the one closest to death.
Hello and welcome to the Petal Plot Pod, a seasonal plant stories and garden tips podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Aneesa.
And I'm Eric.
The common lilac originally comes from the rocky Balkan regions of southeastern Europe. For centuries, lilacs grew in monastery gardens, village courtyards, and royal estates. And by the 1500s, they were beloved throughout Europe for their incredible fragrance and cold hardiness. And that hardiness is exactly why they've become so important in Minnesota. When immigrants from Scandinavia, Germany, Eastern Europe, and Russia arrived in the upper Midwest during the 1800s, they brought lilacs with them, sometimes literally as cuttings wrapped in damp cloth during the long journey westward. Minnesota's brutal winters killed many ornamental plants, but lilacs survived. They thrived beside prairie homesteads, around barns, and along fence lines. Even after houses disappeared, the lilacs often remained. Today, if you're hiking through rural Minnesota and suddenly find a patch of blooming lilacs in the middle of nowhere, there's a good chance a farmhouse once stood there. Lilacs became living markers of memory. Old gardens vanished, families moved away, and buildings collapsed, but the lilacs kept blooming every spring. And Eric, on my walk today, I walked by the most ancient hedge of lilacs I may have ever seen. Like, they're just thick, gnarly trunks going in all directions. And the house looked like it was probably pretty old, like older than my house. My house is like 118 years old, and this was probably older than that. And I was trying to guess, like, how long does it take lilacs to look like that? Like, and they had been really oddly pruned, so they're like going every which way, big dead spots. I don't know.
Yeah. Lilacs really get cool, I feel like, bark architecture going on, right? As they really age. I wish I had a really old specimen in my own garden. You know, I mean, where I live in a 100-year-old home too, but I do remember growing up on the farm, and the farmhouse definitely had a big old lilac, and I remember climbing in it as a kid. That's how large it was.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, my best friend in childhood, she had a big lilac hedge, and we had forts inside of it. Like,
Yeah. Absolutely.
but yeah, I was wondering, like, if that lilac had ever been pruned, or the hedge, because it had such a funny
Mm.
look to it. I don't know. Should we interject pruning tips for lilacs right now?
Wait till it flowers. After it flowers, prune away. But
After
you
it flowers, and then
but you
prune
have like
right
a
after it flowers.
2-3 week window right after the flowers start to look spent, to
Mm-hmm.
go in and cut. If you wait too long, you're gonna still cut off the blooms for next year. So yeah.
Yeah, and I found it helpful to, like, reach deep into the shrub and then
Mm.
make a low cut for, like, the tallest. Like, if you don't want them to get super high. I know I have the big
Mm.
old-fashioned ones, and they'll get, like, 15 feet high, which
Yeah.
is fine in my backyard, but in my front yard, I wanna keep them a little bit lower, so I'm trying to prune them carefully every year to keep the height around, I don't know, 7, 8 feet?
Yeah.
Just by, like, removing the tallest ones from the base, but
Right.
not
Yeah.
too many so I don't lose the blooms, but
Yeah.
keep trying to keep it healthy.
But if you're talking about like all the suckers that can come off of a lilac bush, that can be very different too. In a sense, those you could prune anytime.
Mhm.
You can get to them as long as you're not anticipating to keep them for the plant itself.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's head into the woods, because while lilacs bloom above ground, something equally magical is happening below it. Morel mushrooms begin emerging from the soil just as the earth warms after winter. They spend most of their lives underground as vast networks of microscopic threads called mycelium. The mushrooms we harvest are only the fruiting body, the reproductive structure. It's like the apple on an apple tree, the visible part of something much larger hidden underground. So you don't need to worry about leaving its quote-unquote roots behind. It doesn't have any roots, so it won't affect how many morels will grow next year. If you do want more morels next year, carry them in a net bag with openings so that the spores can spill out while you're walking. So as soon as we have warming soil, recent rain, daytime temps in the 60s, but still cool nights, the trees are budding, and yes, lilacs are blooming. Depending on where you are in Minnesota, morels often appear in late April through May, and especially near dying elms, old apple orchards, ash forests, river bottoms, or disturbed soils after fires or floods. So why do lilacs and morels emerge at the same time? Both lilacs and morels are responding to the same environmental cues. Morels generally begin fruiting when soil temps reach roughly 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and lilacs begin flowering under nearly identical spring conditions. Morels inspire obsession in a way few foods do. Partly because they're delicious, nutty, earthy, rich, almost meaty when sauteed in butter, but also because finding them feels like discovering hidden treasure. Some people will swear morels appear after thunderstorms. Other people will say you must walk slowly and soften your eyes to see them. At first, morels will seem invisible. Then you put your mushroom hunting goggles on, and suddenly your brain adjusts, and hopefully you notice dozens of them around you. Eric, did you do any mushroom hunting growing up on a farm?
So I'm so excited you're talking about this because I've never done this before. And so
Oh,
like I
really?
feel like as you're telling this story, I'm like picturing myself walking through. So I feel like this just needs to be like an outing for us. Can we
Oh,
just go
say
and
less.
do some
I love
I've
mushroom hunting.
never done it. I mean, I'm picturing in my mind what it's like, but I feel like it's not the same. So
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. And especially because like when I first started mushroom hunting, I did two things. One, I went to spots that because of like the things I just listed,
yeah,
hopefully morels were growing there. And I would,
yeah.
oftentimes it was very futile and I like failed and I would like hunt and hunt and hunt and not find any. And then when I finally did, it was so exciting. It was like winning the lottery. It was like I found the holy grail. It was an emotional roller coaster. It was just
Yeah.
really so fun to like finally be successful and like see them there.
Yeah.
And I had a friend, I think one time we had been looking for so long and then we found this huge grove of them and she's just like, oh my god, there they are, and she turned around and almost started crying and like we like hugged and we're like
Like
yeah, it's
you've
fun.
reached the
And I
top
feel
of the
like one of my
mountain.
favorite mushrooms is my favorite one, the hen of the woods. Not the chicken of the woods, the hen
Mm,
of the woods. Because that one is the one that I found the least often, so it feels like the
yeah.
specialist. Also, I think it tastes the best, but
Yeah. I feel like I need to go with you because I'm sure and I'm sure other listeners are thinking this like I don't think I'd ever do it by myself even if I read books about it because I'd be too afraid that I chose the wrong thing.
oh, and
And then
that's
I
so smart
eat
to mention that.
poison and I die.
Yes, yes, that's so smart to mention, and to be fair, I did also read a lot about them before I ever ate any. Like, I think I
Yeah,
spent a year or 2 before I, like, finally, by myself, felt confident enough, but there are
right.
4, like, Morels is one of the big 4 that are pretty, easy to identify,
Yeah.
but yes, always get the advice of an expert. I have a caveat for that later in the podcast somewhere too. But yeah,
Yes, be
we
safe
should go
out there.
mushroom hunting.
Yeah.
The lilacs are blooming. The time is now. Morels are not only delicious, they're remarkably nutritious. For thousands of years, people have valued wild mushrooms for both food and medicine, and modern nutrition science has confirmed that morels contain an impressive range of nutrients. Morels, and many mushrooms, are high in protein, rich in dietary fiber, low in fat, low in calories, and packed with vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients, including vitamin D, which we definitely need here after a long winter. When exposed to sunlight, fungi produce vitamin D somewhat similarly to how human skin produces vitamin D after sun exposure. In fact, fungi are actually more closely related to animals than they are to plants. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
After all, they grow from the ground and seem kind of plant like, but
Yeah.
genetically and evolutionarily, fungi split from the same ancient lineage that eventually produced animals long after the plant kingdom had already branched off on their own path. Okay, I love
I
telling
see.
people this fact.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Right? Like, it was like the
Y-
animal kingdom and the plant kingdom split into 2 different branches, and then it was like 20,000 years later, the fungi kingdom split off the animal kingdom.
Yeah. So crazy.
Yeah, you may never look at them the same again. So, one major clue is the way fungi eat. Plants produce their own food through photosynthesis using sunlight, but fungi can't do that. Instead, fungi digest food externally, releasing enzymes into the soil, wood, or leaf litter and absorbing nutrients afterwards. That process is actually more similar to how animals consume and produce nutrients than how plants operate. Fungi also store energy using glycogen, the same carbohydrate storage method animals use. Plants store energy primarily as starch, and even the cell walls are different. Plants use cellulose, fungi use chitin, the same tough material found in insect shells and crustaceans like crabs and shrimp. And when ants, termites, beetles, worms, and other microscopic creatures die, all of which are high in protein, fungi help decompose them. The underground mycelium breaking down dead organic material into nutrients it can absorb. That means morels are indirectly consuming insects, raising the question, Eric, can vegans eat mushrooms?
Oh,
Technically.
man.
I know. It's going to upset the vegans.
I know, right? Just forget what you just heard.
I mean, I guess it depends on why you're a vegan. Like if
Yeah,
you're a vegan because you don't want to support the animal industry, but you'll
right.
eat honey because it's good for you, even though it's made with bee. Like a lot of vegans don't eat honey because bees make it.
I was just thinking that it's the natural order of things, right? Of,
Yeah.
mushrooms digesting insects, right?
Yeah. Like if it's about consumerism,
Yeah.
then it shouldn't matter. But if it's about like
Yeah.
the life, I don't know. There's also a lot of evidence that plants have more intelligence than people give them credit for, right?
Hmm.
Or no, I
Yes.
don't
No,
know.
I believe that. I mean, I feel like there always continues to be new studies that show, how they, in a sense, have feelings, you know what I mean? That they actually
Mhm.
react to things. And, if they're picked, they actually react to that in different ways
Mhm.
too. So I feel like, yeah, it's fascinating.
Do you have a favorite way of eating morels?
Well, there again, okay, I've never eaten a morel. So this is again why this is a really good podcast
Oh
for
my
me. I've had
god.
mushrooms, but like not the same. We're
Oh
talking
my
like a good old
god.
portobello.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we have to go find you a morel.
Yeah. Broaden
Mission.
my horizons, Aneesa.
Yes. Oh my goodness. They're so good. Like a lot of wild mushrooms that I pick, I mean, I feel like everything could go in a taco, right? Like most mushrooms are just great in a taco.
Right.
But morels are one that have because of the way they taste, the flavor is so good. I like to just
Mm,
even just do simple like butter, garlic, salt on a
mhm.
piece of toast because
Yum.
it's such a great flavor on its own.
We're gonna go out to the forest. We're gonna find these, Aneesa,
Mhm.
and then we're come back and have a morel party or
We're
something.
gonna fry them up. Yep.
Yep.
Of course, dear listeners, morels should always be thoroughly cooked before eating. Raw morels contain compounds that can cause stomach upset or illness. Proper cooking breaks down those compounds and brings out their famous rich, nutty flavor. And like all wild mushroom foraging, careful identification matters enormously. Some poisonous mushrooms, especially so-called false morels, can resemble true morels and may contain dangerous toxins. So next time you smell lilacs blooming in Minnesota, remember, somewhere nearby, beneath cottonwoods and old elms, morels may be pushing through the leaf litter. Two completely different organisms, one a flowering shrub from Europe, the other an ancient fungus hidden underground, now tied together forever in the seasonal rhythm of the upper Midwest.
All right, let's get into garden center shopping. because buying plants successfully is honestly a skill. And once you understand why certain plants perform better, why certain sizes establish faster, and why some purchases become long term regrets, you start gardening a whole lot smarter. Aneesa, it is go time, I feel like, at the garden centers, is it not?
Sure is. It sure is. It sure is.
Feel
It's
like we've
busy.
been warming up weather-wise and also in the number of people we start to see at the garden center. And so usually obviously over Mother's Day, it
Mhm.
is nuts in most garden centers. And where we work at definitely is no exception. So I thought, what a perfect time to talk about buying things at a garden center when we're probably all headed there if we haven't already been there earlier this season.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's now finally just exactly the safe time to plant, right? We
Yes,
made
exactly.
it.
So garden centers are like also like incredibly good at like making gardeners shop emotionally instead of practically, right? So I was
Mhm.
thinking like everything is blooming. It's even funny. I feel like the garden center has changed from like dirt pots and sticks to all of a sudden like everything has green and we start to have flowers on things and it just looks gorgeous, right? And so the carts are oversized so you feel like you haven't bought enough yet and keep buying. And honestly, the biggest mistake like many gardeners make is just shopping for the plants they love in that moment instead of like shopping for the conditions or size or space they may have. And so thinking a little bit of a plan before shopping. Many plants can fail for many different reasons. Like you find something you love, but it goes in the sunlight, but you're going to try to see if it maybe will fit into a more shadier spot for you. Maybe it wants a lot of moisture, but you don't know a lot about that plant. And so you're going to try it in a very dry location. And so, like all these things that sometimes we impulse buy because of what something may look like, but there's maybe a lot of other hidden things just to think about. And especially if you're a beginner gardener, like you should be fully aware of before you just buy a plant and maybe the plant ends up dying on you, right? I
Mhm.
feel like, Anissa, these are like a lot of the questions we field when we're at the garden center, when people are looking at certain plants and maybe we approach and ask them some questions. But are there like plants that you think of that you're like, oh, I need to tell them about this first before that person buys that plant? Because they just might not know.
Yeah, I think that, like, astilbes really like a lot of
Mm,
water, so that's one thing that I always try to talk to people
yeah.
about.
I was thinking
Um
that and like ligularia is
Oh,
one,
yeah, that one
same
too.
bucket, right? Hmm.
Mhm. Or, like, when people are talking about trying to plan bloom times, but at the garden center, they might
Yeah.
be forcing the blooms to bloom out of their natural cycle just to look
Right.
appealing, right? So
Yeah.
then trying to be like, "Okay, so it's blooming now, but, like, next year, it's actually gonna bloom a month later," or something,
Totally.
like
Yeah. Or I think of things like hibiscus, our hardy hibiscus. I feel like I'm always telling them like, "Hey, don't be afraid next year when it doesn't show up until like June because
Mhm.
literally it's late to break dormancy."
Yes.
And so it's like all those little tidbits that sometimes I feel like if you read the plant tag, you would know,
Mhm.
right? But not everyone reads the plant tag.
I know a lot of people think the hibiscus dies, and so I always try to tell people, like, put a little marker, like, put a spoon where you planted it or something so that you remember where
Yeah.
it is, so you don't accidentally dig it up, and then just know that it'll take a extra month or 2 to show life,
Yeah.
any signs of life.
And I think the other one is like size. Like people not realizing the size something's going to be, they assume what they're buying is the plant, right? And sometimes it's like, ooh, that that's going to be really big. You just bought a sumac, like you're talking at least 8 feet in all directions, or
Mhm.
oh, that one spreads, lily of the valley, like be ready, all things.
I don't know if I would ever recommend planting lily of the
I
valley. I
know.
would like,
Those are
maybe
my
pick
two
something else.
extremes of get ready. Get ready. If I see that in your cart, I'm gonna
Yeah,
let you
like,
know.
"Hey, did you know?"
The other thing I was gonna talk about is just like, okay, maybe this is controversial, but I'd love to get your opinion, Anissa, on this, because I definitely have one about big box stores versus like local garden centers, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Both can sell plants, but um, I feel like it can get gardeners fired up because both big box stores and local nurseries, absolutely have value, but in different ways. What's your take on those two?
I mean, I honestly, anytime I've impulse buy, because I've never gone to like a Home Depot for plants on purpose, but I
Hmm.
might be in a Home Depot for something else, and then I'll see
Hmm.
the plants and inevitably walk over and buy something.
Yeah.
And they just historically have not done very well for me. Like the seeds haven't
Hmm.
been productive, or the plants haven't come back the next year, or
Right.
the houseplants have some like pest issue. And so, yeah, I love my local garden center, and it, it has focuses on sustainability and organic plants and permaculture. And, like that's where I want to put my
Yeah.
money, is like people that care about stewardship, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to me, that's a big difference is I feel like I think you get different service in a big box store versus a local garden center. I mean, local garden center, you're more than likely getting experts that understand plants and how to grow things, and they can tell you a lot, and you can have the random conversation about, the variegated whatever plant that just came out.
Mhm.
Then 45
For
minutes later,
sure.
you're leaving. But I feel like in big box stores, sometimes it's like they have plants. And if you know enough, you can choose what looks healthy and maybe you can totally score some good plants there. But you're probably not going to have the same, knowledge and service that you'd find in a local garden center. Not to mention the plant quality, because sometimes those plants that go to big box stores, they can be very root bound. But, I also understand like there's people out there like that is their garden place, right? Like they don't have a local garden
Mhm.
center within reasonable distance. And so that might be where you get your plants. And I think that's also okay too. But my take is if you have a local garden center, you should definitely be going there first.
Yeah, and I think a lot of garden centers are, family operated, like, they were started
Yeah.
by a family that maybe, like, had a farm or a farm stand 85 years ago. Yeah, a lot of them are, really established in these families that pass down a lot of good knowledge
Yeah.
and, like, care for
Absolutely.
what they do, passion for what they do, not like a
Hmm.
corporation that's just,
Yeah.
trying to make money or something. But, I
Yeah.
mean, everyone wants to make money, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong.
So I feel like it's time to talk about like how to inspect like perennials before buying because flowers are temporary and like the root systems and everything else is very important as well. I think things that when you see like huge leafy growth often means that possibly it's been heavily fertilized. Greenhouse pampering happens, obviously, and transplant shock can happen. And so kind of look for something that's like a dense, compact growth versus something long and leggy. The health of the leaf color matters, right? And I think, does it have multiple stems or crown, new growth emerging, moist but not soggy soil? And that those roots are healthy looking and they're not like circling aggressively, in the container. So here's a good question. I feel like people have talked about this too of like popping the plant out of the container to look at the roots. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're buying the
Yeah.
plant as long as you can do it without damaging the plant,
Yeah,
and I mean, I don't think I do that regularly, but when I get it home, I will address root situations if I see
for
them,
sure.
by like untangling or cutting or something like that. But do you check the roots before you buy stuff?
Um, I will on some things. Maybe when I get a little more into like trees and shrubs, I like to check. And I do
Mhm.
think if you're checking roots, I think like a kind, considerate thing to do is to like ensure you're not going to like pull it out and make a dirt mess everywhere. Like keep
Right,
yourself
yeah.
clean, like not be rude to the establishment and the workers who now are going to have to clean up a mess that you just made. But like I just bought an arborvitae, right, Aneesa, and I feel like I knew it was a large specimen in a small pot, it felt, right?
Mhm.
And I was getting a great price for it, but I instantly thought, like, what do these roots look like? And
Mhm.
so I did tap it to look at it because I wanted to kind of know what would I be buying and would it be a problem or would I know how to like correct it, right? Because you may need to know like, oh, I'm gonna need to water this heavily to get it started because there's no soil left in that container, or to get it established into your garden might be a little bit trickier, right? So something
Mhm.
to pay attention to. Um, the other thing we're going to talk about too is just like why buying small often works versus buying the larger specimen. So I feel like different plants that I would recommend, like go ahead and buy the smaller, cheaper plant probably, and others that I would probably say no. If you have the money, like great to invest in something that has been grown on, because maybe it's really slow growing. Do you have certain plants, Anissa, that come to mind when you think of like, oh, don't waste your time buying the big plant, like just buy the little one, or vice versa, like spend the money
Oh,
if you got it?
lilacs for sure.
Yeah,
Lilacs grow fast. They'll grow from almost nothing. They can take
yeah,
a lot of stress.
for
Unless I
sure.
think the only reason you would want to buy it is if you needed it big, like that at that time. Like you're selling your house and you want
Yeah,
a really beautiful lilac right on the corner or something like that.
right. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like slower growing trees like the firs or hemlock. I feel like that take a long time. So if you find a bigger
mm-mm.
specimen, like I think those are worth spending the money on.
Really good to mention that, hemlocks are often pretty expensive compared to,
Yeah.
like, getting an arborvitae or something because
Mm.
they're really slow growing, and they're
Yeah.
super cool looking, but, they're really slow growing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then other things, I mean, even I was thinking in perennials, like I probably would spend more money on a peony that is bigger because it does take a little bit for it to really get bushed out and have a
Mhm.
large amount of flowers on it, right?
Yeah, that's
Um
so true.
I feel like just a few things. Baptisia kind of comes to mind because I think that takes a few years to really feel like it's doing anything. Or, Anissa, I think of hellebores because how many times in the garden center do you find
Mhm.
little hellebores and you're like, oh my God, like what is this
Mhm.
gonna like start bulking up, right?
For sure, yep.
So annuals and shopping and strategies, I feel like it's really very similar, but I feel like, smaller annuals really help establish faster. I think sometimes with annuals, paying attention to something that's like just has buds versus is all flowered out sometimes can give you a longer season, and a longer bloom time overall. I feel like huge blooming baskets are frequently near their peak already. So sometimes choosing things that aren't so full, and past, I think, prime, can make a difference, or you might find yourself cutting it back already.
I did see a hack one time, that someone would take buy hanging baskets and then
Yeah.
plant them in bigger pots, and then they just sort of fill out into, like, a much larger situation, so,
Yeah, that's a really good hack. I mean, for a lot of container gardeners, I feel like that's an easy way to get instant fill on your container and just drop it in a hanging
mhm.
basket, right? Because many
Yeah.
times they do fit right within those larger containers. You're right. Lastly, I thought I was going to talk a little bit just about buying online versus in person. And so I feel like online plant shopping seems dangerous because it happens like late at night when your gardening judgment is like weakest. But like, I feel like online shopping can be incredible if you're looking to gain access to like rare plants, specialty breeders, new cultivars, unique collector varieties. But sometimes I know it can disappoint because photos sometimes show mature plants and not the tiny little starter plug you just got that arrived in the mail. And so I feel like there's different things to like be ready for or be aware of that seller of what kind of plants you're actually buying and would show up at your doorstep. But I do think you can get a lot of really cool stuff online that you might just not have locally just because garden centers or places have decided to only carry things they know are going to sell, which makes sense as a business. But maybe as an enthusiast, you may be looking for some new stuff that you just can't get anywhere. Anissa, have you done
Mhm.
some online garden shopping late at night?
Oh yeah, for sure, but now you got me thinking about peony trees for some reason because there's there's a grower slash garden center up I think it's kind of northern Minnesota or up north
Yeah.
somewhere that specializes in peonies, and I've looked through their website before and I'm like, "Oh," like, I'm like, I just wanna go to a garden center right now, but,
Yeah. I mean, I always wish a lot of those places were closer than they are. And I have gone to, like garden shows in other states and like flown back with plants in my luggage. So that has
is that
happened.
illegal?
Yes, it is. They would have shipped it to me anyways, Anissa.
Oh, I suppose if it's, domestic, right, yeah.
Domestic, yes. But I also know I have some like go-to places I'll go to online, like for Japanese maples that I want to grow in pots, or I've gotten peonies online as well. Some natives,
Uh-huh.
that honestly weren't far away, just like south of us, but like I wasn't going to drive there and they will ship them to me. So there's different accesses you can get. And I think especially if you're someone that doesn't live near, a garden center or other places, you're looking for more stuff. Like I think that's a great way to like find some other places. And there's some really good reputable places. Would I go on Etsy and buy all the purple hostas and other things that are advertised? Probably not, right?
Mm.
And lastly, I think we should also mention like the other places to buy plants, like plant sales, garden clubs. I feel like Master Gardener sales, the Arboretum I know has a sale locally. And
This
I think those are
weekend.
all great places. It's happening this weekend. Oh, hey.
Yeah.
So if you catch this podcast, you might just catch it late, honestly,
Oh, yeah, I
but
suppose by the time this is published,
plan
it will
for
have already.
next year.
But there are other plant sales later in May too in other areas.
So So, the longer you garden, the more you realize successful plant shopping isn't really about buying the prettiest plant. It's about buying the right plant with healthy roots, for the right place, at the right time. And honestly, once you learn how to inspect plants properly, understand how they establish, and stop falling for oversized stressed specimens, you save money, lose fewer plants, and your garden gets dramatically better. Also, you still probably leave with more plants than you planned. That part never changes. Hey, Aneesa, do we have a listener question for today?
Oh, yeah, we do. Let me see here. Okay. Beatrix writes in and asks, I want to fill my house with bouquets of lilacs this time of year, but I'm sad when it seems like they wilt right away. Is there a way I can get the blooms to last longer in a vase? Oh, this is a good question. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had that happen to me where I pick lilacs and I put them in
Hmm.
the vase and they're good for like one day.
Yeah.
And then they look terrible the next day.
Yeah.
But they smell so good and it's such a temporary thing. Like you want them.
Yeah. I think there's a few things you can do that I've
Hmm.
done. And see if you agree with this method, Anissa. So, like, I feel like one, cut stems like early in the morning when the plant's like fully hydrated. And I feel like choosing like flower clusters that are like maybe like a third or half open. So,
Hmm.
like, they'll fully open when you have them inside.
Yeah, like they
Um,
just start opening.
yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then remove all the leaves because they're just going
Mhm.
to expel moisture. So take all the leaves off. And then I cut up the stems maybe like 2 inches. So from the bottom of the stem, cut it up so it's like divided. It like intakes more water.
So you're talking about splitting the stem, like taking a knife
Yeah.
and drawing a line vertically down the stem to sort of
Yep.
split it, right? Mhm.
Correct. Yeah. Or I've done it just with my pruners if you're careful and you just like snip up the bottom.
Yeah, because then they can take in more water because
Yeah.
there's more surface area to drink water
Yeah.
with.
And I do think you have to immediately put them in water once you've cut them and done that. Like, don't carry them around or whatever. I do think they
Mhm.
lose things and you're going to have to recut the bottoms again.
Yeah, I would say, like, bring your vase to the garden, cut them, put them
Absolutely.
immediately in water, bring them inside, split the stems, remove the
Yeah.
leaves, and then put them back in water. Like, they should never leave the water, ideally, I think.
Yeah. I also know people, instead of cutting, they smash the bottom, which sounds a little weird,
Oh,
like
yeah,
with
like
a
with a
hammer,
hammer.
which
Mhm,
really is doing the same thing and opens up all those fibers to like intake water,
mhm.
and just kind of opening the stem up. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think too, making sure that the stems are a little bit long, like at least like a foot long, so that you're not
Yeah.
just taking the short part of the flower at the top, but you're taking at least a foot of the branch. That will
Yeah.
and plus that'll help hold the heavy heads up because those heads will get very heavy. So you need that structure in the vase too, but that'll help them stay perky longer and, like, keep them out of the sun, like, in your house,
Yes.
like.
Yep.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great point to put them in direct sun to fry
Right.
again.
If you have a gardening question you'd like us to answer, please write to us at petalandplot@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you know and click the follow button to hear our next episode.
As garden designers here at Petal and Plot, we also offer year-round in-person and virtual gardening consultations and custom garden designs as well. Want to see more of what we're up to? Please follow us on Instagram at Petal and Plot. That's PETALNPLOT.